let's talk about the new Cosmic Dreamer collection from Ensley Cosmetics. There's quite a few pieces to this collection, and I was sent this collection in PR, so thank you so much to Ensley for sending it over to me so I could get a video up before the launch and tell you all the detail. And I do have an affiliate code with the brand in case you're interested in anything on their website or in this collection. I will put it on the screen, and thank you so much if you do use my code. So let's get into the different products. So first up, we have the Cosmic Dreamer eyeshadow palette. It is a more vertical palette. So far they've been launching definitely a lot more horizontal kind of palettes, but they are still keeping these square magnetic pans, which I love to see, because that way if you already have some of the other palettes, you can definitely create some beautiful BYOPs featuring all the different shades you might have. So I'm very happy to see that this is magnetic, and the inside color story is a mix of blues, greens, and pinks, and it's definitely more cool tone leaning. So we've got the teal, we've got the blues, there's like a grayish blue, there's also like a grayish brown, then a taupey light brown. The pinks are a little bit cooler leaning, the brown is, and so are the greens. So there's definitely cohesion in the tones in here. I don't think you're gonna have too much clashing. And of course we have their beautiful shimmers. There's a couple of shimmers that are a little bit smoother than others. There's one holographic multi-chrome down here, and there are a couple of duochromes as well as a satin, which is right up here in the corner. I will be showing you detailed swatches of each of the shimmers in here, as well as the single eyeshadows, as well as the loose pigments, and I'm going to be showing you some swatch comparisons to the singles as well as the palette. So let's get into the single eyeshadows. There's going to be 6 eyeshadows. They're not going to come with this empty palette. This is an empty palette I got from Cosmetics. I will link it down in the description box. I just put the singles in here. I kind of wish that they came out with a smaller 6-pan palette with maybe the same theming on it to go along with this collection, so you could pop them in if you were, of course, planning on getting all 6. And we have a nice mixture of some non-holographic shades. And then for hollows, I am currently wearing Lucid Dreams paired with matte from the palette, but this shade is so shifty and so beautiful and really fun and shiny on the lid. And then there's also a lip gloss in this collection. Is a really beautiful peachy orange yellow shifting lip gloss. I have tried it. It's a little bit on the thicker side. It's a little bit like thick in a sticky way, so I'm not quite sure how I feel about it yet. Moving on to the pigments, there are 6 different pigments, and again I will be showing you detailed swatches of each of these. There's a little bit of a variety of like level of sparkly versus smooth for sure. I've tried a few of their singles and they're so beautiful, but I will not be using these in this video since there is a lot of eyeshadows and I only have 2 lids. So let me give you some of the details. This collection is launching this Friday, May 17th at 9:30 a.m. PST. So let's get into the detailed swatches of each of the shimmer shades, some comparison swatches, 2 looks, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. Starting off with the palette, this is Cosmic Queen. This is a super vibrant pink straight on going into peach and then yellow at the end. It is very smooth to the touch, spreads very nicely. Definitely feels a little bit on the creamier side. Stargazer is a more topper-like shade. It doesn't have too much of a base. It is a pink, blue, purple shifting shade. Definitely a bit more blue straight on, and then shifting into the pink and purple. It does have a little bit of a base at this angle. It's almost like light yellowy orange. Ethereal Plain is such a beautiful, super dimensional shadow. While it's not shifty, it has a really warm, light brown base to it, and I see lots of blue, pink, and silver flecks throughout it. So far, all these have been feeling very smooth. Interplanetary has a beautiful orangey red base to it. It's a very yellow orange straight on, and you can really see the base when it's on an angle. Astral Traveler is a satin shade, a warmer brown tone, and it does have some gold flecks throughout it, but they're pretty subtle. Lucidity is a beautiful, really bright lime green, but straight on it actually flashes quite a bit bright orange. It's a little bit on the translucent side, and it is very smooth, really punchy shade. It's interesting how green it looks in the pan, but once swatched out, you can really see the punchy orange. Mercury is a really beautiful dark olive toned green. It has a little bit of brown in it too. It has a very slight shift in it. It is not the most sparkly or shiny, but it is not quite as satin as Astral Traveler. Astral Plain is a lighter version almost of Mercury. It is an olivey green, very smooth, not quite as sparkly, but definitely more shiny than Astral Traveler. Cosmic Dust, silver with a blue tone to it. Definitely a bit of a black base, definitely very dark shimmer. You can see the dark base on the edges as it's a little bit blended out. It's very beautiful, very shiny, a bit sparkly, very smooth, doesn't feel squishy to the touch. Lunar Storm is definitely multi-chrome, and it is that very vibrant jeweled tone green. It is more of a forest green, and it shifts teal and then all the way to purple, like kind of different tones of purple as well depending on the lighting here. And this is a hollow shadow, so you can see a little bit of the hollow flex throughout it, but I don't think they're as prominent as in the shade that's in the Lands of Enchantment palette. Onto the singles, this is Lucid Dreams. This has a little bit of a yellowy orangey base to it, and it is very green straight on, and then icy blue and purple shifts. Super, super smooth, metallic, and shiny, and it does not feel squishy in the pan. Really, really beautiful, fun, dimensional shadow. Divine Realm is a beautiful rosy pink, and because it's the tie-dye shade, it has a little bit of the flecks that are from that shade throughout it, so they kind of mix together to create this very dimensional shade. And the parts of the shadow that are the tie-dye that look yellow, they look like they're the same pigment as the previous shade, but because there is that pink, it just mixes together, so they're not really similar. The shade is Star Chaser, and it feels actually a little bit squishy in the pan. It is pretty emollient, it's spread out really nicely, it's very smooth, it has a little bit of hollow in it, and this one has a almost like a pinky purpley base to it, and then it shifts to a purple. I also see a lot of green straight on, and then also blue as it's shifting. It is a very, very beautiful special shadow. Orifim is a hollow shadow for sure. It's got a little bit of a bluish greenish tint to it, so it's very silvery, but it does have just a tiny bit of a shift, but it's not too obvious. But it is very, very hollow, very smooth. Existential Bliss is such a beautiful orangey bronze straight on, and it shifts to gold to green. It is a little bit more like a jewel multi-chrome without the black base. Lots of hollows throughout it. Super, super fun shade. Feels really nice and smooth. And the last shimmer shade, Party in the UFO. This is a really beautiful, vibrant denim blue that shifts to purple, also hollow shade. This one feels very squishy. It feels almost a little bit sticky too if you keep pushing into the pan. So I'm not really sure if this one's something I could really wear on the lid, but it's not really a color I would really gravitate towards anyway. Loose pigment and Cosmic Dust, and I did use the Karla Cosmetics Fix Potion to apply this. It is a loose pigment, and this is a really beautiful greenish silver, really light silver, and it shifts to a purple. It's super, super interesting, very dimensional. Cosmic Queen is a little bit green, straight on with pink flecks throughout it with a peach base. It does shift just a little bit. It is extra, extra sparkly. So this one is definitely more sparkly than the previous shade. The texture feels a little bit different as well. Cosmic Light has a yellow base, and it is blue straight on with a purple shift. Super, super sparkly, really, really beautiful shade. Cosmic Ember is really, really bright pink, orange flashing shade that shifts to yellow, gold, orange. Super beautiful dimensional shade. Cosmic Energy is a beautiful jeweled multi-chrome. It's teal straight on, and then it shifts to blue all the way to purple. Very, very smooth. Cosmic Voyager is olive green, shifting bright green, blue, and a little bit of purple all the way at the end there. It's super, super smooth. into Wonder, I'm gonna create a little bit of an eyeshadow wing. And I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker. So going in this way. And then just taking it further out. Just kind of feathering whatever's already down. And connecting my lower lash line just a little bit. Taking Meraki and I'm putting that right into the crease. This blending brush. Want it to be nice and blended. And then I'm wiping off this brush and I'm picking up Dreamscape. And I'm gonna pop that right into this inner crease. Just adding a little bit more. Going back in with a little bit more Meraki. And then it's time for the shimmer. Let's see, I kind of want to use Astral Plane, and I'm just going to pop it right on this outer corner, layering it over the dark green wing. And then I think in the center, I'm going to go with Interplanetary. Right in here, right in the center. Oh, the shade is so shiny, so pretty. And then Ethereal Plane is gonna go right on this inner corner that I left space for that. And here's the first finished look. Picking up Dreamer, it's gonna go right on the inner crease. Wiping off the brush and picking up Astral Body. I love the tone of this one. I think generally speaking, the whole palette is pretty cooler tone leaning. It's very grungy. And then I'm going to go back in, wiping off my brush with a little bit more Dreamer in here. Taking Neptune on the outer corner. Just going to be slowly kind of tapping it down first. I'm going to wipe off the brush so I don't have any more left. And I'm going to start blending that out in circular motions. Going back in with just a little bit more. Do want to wing this out just a tiny bit out here. And then taking Eclipse, I'm just going to run this close to my lash line just to add a little bit of depth in here. Just in here. And a little bit onto my lower lash line. And then I'm going to take Neptune on this blending brush and just layer it on top and just mesh everything together in this outer corner. Picked up Cosmic Dust and I misted my brush with just some water afterwards. And I'm putting that on this outer portion of my lid going into the center. Picked up Lucidity and it's going to go right on this inner portion of my lid. And I'm gonna extend it upwards above, just like that. Here it is finished. So in terms of the lip gloss, I definitely have to try it out some more before I let you know my thoughts. But definitely something I noticed is it is thicker. It's a little bit stickier. I do prefer glosses that are a little bit thinner and they kind of like slip inside a little bit. But usually with thicker glosses, they do last a bit better on the lips. But this is more of like a topper lip gloss, so I'm not sure how much that really matters. Onto the loose pigments. These are so beautiful just from swatching. Per usual, I mean, I really feel like you can't go wrong with a loose pigment. It's going to last you a long time. Is a little bit messier. Yes, it is. And that's why I don't really reach for loose pigments. I definitely prefer pressed eyeshadows. So while I do appreciate these, I'm not sure how much use I will get out of them. That being said, I love some of the colors in here, especially Cosmic Ember, which is like kind of like very similar to the lip gloss, as well as Cosmic Queen. This one is definitely more of a topper-like shade, and then Iridescent. I mean, can't go wrong with any sort of iridescent eyeshadow, whether it's pressed or loose, and that is Cosmic Light. And then Cosmic Dust is Not really sparkly, it's actually more like a finely milled smooth pigment that's still really, really shiny and more like metallic rather than sparkly, if that makes sense. And this one is so beautiful, really great kind of everyday, but make it fun, neutral. It's a little bit silvery, a little bit like a green silver. So I definitely want to use this one. Probably will film like a reel with it or something like that. As for the single shadows, absolutely love this one. The Lucid Dreams shade, love it. It's a stunner. But if you saw in the comparisons, I do have a couple of different shades from other brands. But that being said, this one is definitely the shiniest, and when I was putting it on for this look, it picked up and laid down so easily over the Fairy Pixie Epoxy. So absolutely loving it. I'm not really sure if you get this one, I don't really think you need the marbled shade because the pigments in it, yes, it kind of creates more of like a peachy pinky shade, but I don't know if you necessarily need both of them. And I'm pretty familiar with their single eyeshadow formula, and I feel like some of these don't really feel like that same formula. They feel a little bit more like the palette formula. Specifically these 3 holographic shades, they're a little bit squishy, especially the dark blue. It's pretty squishy in there, so I'm not really sure how much use I will get out of that one, because I have hooded oily lids and I have a lot of creasing issues, but also it's not really like a shade that I will gravitate towards. But this shade, which is more of like a true silvery hollow, is not squishy like some of these other hollows, so that's something to keep in mind if you're into hollows, but you might not necessarily want something squishy. Then I definitely recommend this one, keeping in mind that this one will look very silvery on the lid. So onto the eyeshadow palette, I am happy to see that this artwork was created by an actual artist, and they have had this palette previously, but it had a much more of a fall grungy color story from what I kind of vaguely remember, and I believe it had the same artwork on it, but it was a little bit different. I'm not sure if there was like space in her sunglasses in there, and there was definitely not space behind her. So I like the revamp of this one. It is definitely still a little bit more on the grungy side. I don't really think that these 2 greens necessarily reflect in the packaging artwork, and also in like a space theme. The mattes performed beautifully in the 3 looks that I have created so far with this palette. It feels right on par with the other mattes in their previous eyeshadow palettes, which I'm definitely always happy to see some consistency. So let's talk about the shimmers. There's a couple of different textures in here. Some of them are a little bit more sparkly, some of them are a little bit more smoother shine, and you can see that in the individual swatches of all the shades, which ones are extra sparkly. When I first opened the palette, I was very curious to swatch Lunar Storm against that, it's escaping me, the name escapes me every time, Moon Magic, I think, from Lands of Enchantment, because I immediately thought that they looked like they were going to be very, very similar, and they definitely are. So it's kind of like a repeat shade, though I feel like the hollows are just a little bit more subtle in here. I think the tone is like slightly different, but I do wish there had been a different shade in here that wasn't so close to the shade from Lands of Enchantment. I also noticed that none of these shades are particularly like super squishy or wet feeling. They do have like obviously like a smoother, more emollient touch to them. But the emollient touch just feels like a nice shimmer shadow, not like a really problematic kind of squishy shadow. But I would definitely recommend some sort of a tacky primer with these if you do have oily hooded lids. But I am so happy to not see any super squishy shades in here. Overall, I've been having a great experience with the palette, and I definitely want to dip into it some more. Some of these shades, especially Ethereal Plain, like this is a great just everyday shadow, honestly. And I love that there's like a brown in here and like an orange, so I really feel like you can do some more everyday kind of looks. So let me know in the comments below if you're excited for this launch. Is there anything you plan on picking up? I would love to hear your thoughts, and that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.